Hello and welcome to another video by me, Rick Miracle, the Truth Seeker, trying to find out the truth. In my series Freemasonry and Satanism, this is 284 part 2. And talking about this book, Devil Worship in France. And what an interesting, crazy conversation part 1 was. I did mention something in part 1 that I went and looked up like I said I would. But Dr. Rashid Buttar, B-U-T-T-A-R, R-A-S-H-I-D, Dr. Rashid Buttar, was the one talking about the coronavirus and mentioned that when they come for us, he'll be one of the red dot people that will be killed. And he says he's ready to go to heaven. He has some questions for God. At least he has a sense of humor. I was checking the internet for some news in between making the videos and taking a little break. And apparently Vice President Pence says it's imperative to get the country back to work. Meanwhile, there are governors opposing that, and other press releases saying, will the second wave of the virus be worse? So they're talking about one wave after another. First wave, second wave, third wave. So it just makes you wonder, is this it? Or will we somehow, miraculously, get the world back to normal, whatever so-called normal is? It hasn't been normal for me ever since I woke up in 2005. And obviously, I had concerns in my mind because I probably wouldn't have woken up had I not been pondering or seeing things that were concerning me, causing me to have a slight case of depression back then. I had the house by the beach, swimming pool, and money and boats, but I wasn't happy. The world I was living in, the people I had to deal with, it just seemed to me there was just a lot of nasty people out there. And I didn't like it. And of course, I was getting older, turning 50 years old. And I had to look down the road. I had to look back at my life. Assuming I went to work at 20, I went to work younger. But 20, 30, 40, 50, that's 30 years of employment. And of course, in the future, assuming I work until I'm 70, so 50, 60, 70, that's 20 more years. So I wasn't happy. And there were other things. There were things like the shrimp and the crabs and the fish were gone in my estuary, the Indian River, the Intercoastal Waterway near Melbourne, Cocoa Beach, and the Space Center. So I was used to being out in the water all the time, and I'd go snorkeling or swimming into the beach and fishing, and the fish were gone, the trout were gone, the crabs were gone, the shrimp were gone. I noticed it, and I said, hey, if the seafood is gone, I'm gone. That's what prompted me and motivated me to get away from that beautiful place in Florida and come up to the mountains to try to find some healthier climate to live in. So waking up, I could see things were wrong, and I think a lot of people has their own story about it. And of course, we are where we are right now, and a lot of people would like to get things back to so-called normal. But as I just said, it doesn't seem like it's been normal per se for quite a while. So that prompted me to do this research and give up a house by the beach, 1 block from the beach. I could lay in my bed and I could hear the waves breaking with a swimming pool. And I own 2 houses. I had another one in north of Orlando on the St. Johns River with my boat at my own dock, a brand new boat. And I could just go over to the dock and go in the St. Johns River and all the small waterways and see alligators and take friends and listen to music. I had the life. And I do sometimes miss it, being by the ocean or being out on the boat on the water. And I had my own business as a business consultant. I was making decent money. I gave it up to learn that the devil's in charge. No wonder I was having some depression issues. Some things just weren't right. I'm going to read from this book. Try to actually get some material out of it and discuss it as I go. Because the prelude, my opening statements, pretty much consumed part 1 of series 284. In my series I started in 2013 September, after reading books for almost 10 years and doing research for almost 10 years. My original plan was I was doing research and had decided I would write a book and get the word out. But every time I started researching different topics, I found out there were people out there who already wrote the books. And I got the brainstorm idea. I need to bring those books to the public's attention. There are people who gave their lives to do all these books I've gone over. Risked their lives. Some of them gave their lives. William Cooper, the author of Beware a Pale Horse, was shot on his front driveway. And so many other people have been killed throughout the years of my research. So I was reading this book about devil worship in France and discovered that it wasn't really about devil worship. The author was actually trying to discredit devil worship and say it's all foolishness. It doesn't exist. But he gives himself away. And then modern palladism, apparently a dark version of Freemasonry, where they actually have satanic rituals and devil worship. He says that doesn't exist. Oh, come on, the Freemasons are wonderful gentlemen, and the church is insane to be accusing them of these things. But if you've been doing research for 15 years and you've collected a couple thousand books and closing in on series 300, this is 284, so not too many more to go to reach 300. 1,000 hours of these book reviews and researching other materials on all the websites and listening to thousands and thousands of other people's videos and using my God-given brain to put 2 and 2 together. So at some point, I think anybody, you watching this video, you do not have to be an intellectual to get it. Anybody who looks into it honestly, and I do believe we're spiritual beings, so I think if you sincerely, with your heart, you want to know the truth, I think the spiritual world, God will deliver. And then you get those coincidences where things fall into your lap, boom, 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 and you go, aha, aha, I see it. But you have to be sincere about that desire, and that may be part of the reality why we're on planet Earth, to be conscious beings and to make choices, serving others and caring about the world, or serving ourselves, and even some people with severely perverted desires and greed and dominating other people, killing other people, and so much more. It's these kinds of things, when you think about it, you really don't want to believe, but apparently it's real. So page 217, I left off talking about the white rose, which is the rosy cross, and that kind of information, and the connection to the Kabbalah, and that basically in the Encyclopedia Judaica, it says the Kabbalah historically has been the religion of the Jewish people, and how the Jewish people, that word doesn't make sense. But if you say Hebrew slash Khazarian slash Satanist, it makes more sense. And of course, a lot of Jewish people didn't go to the dark side, or I should say, Shepherditic, original Jewish people. They still are God-fearing, good people, and a lot of those people have written famous books, and I've made book reviews on them. So it's a lot of actual Shepherditic Hebrew people called Jews who have exposed a lot of truth. And please look up Benjamin Friedman and his famous speech. Just plug that in the search engine. Benjamin Friedman's famous speech, even on YouTube. And you can listen to his entire speech, a famous Jewish man. And then go get John Kennedy, President John Kennedy's famous speech. If you listen to those two famous speeches, you just might go, aha, son of a gun. These evil forces have been exposed. These people told us. President John Kennedy was assassinated for it. Oh my, and so many other people. So on this page, it starts out with, when it transpired that the question of Lucifer was a new aspect of the old question of Catholic hostility to Masonry, the astonishment evaporated. So Catholic, if you don't know what that means, Catholic Christians, Catholic Church, Catholic, the word itself means universal. And I do believe that the Catholic Church had many decent leaders, bishops, popes, priests throughout the ages. And obviously, if you do any research, they had some apparently evil men getting at the helm and control of the church, the Vatican. And of course, with the Jesuits, they're supposed to be the assassination arm of the Catholic Church. And they have a leader called the Black Pope. And apparently,
welcome to a video by Rick Miracle Me.
Sorry about that. I was processing part 1, and it processes in the background. And when it finished processing my video to put it into a posted video, it plays it all of a sudden. So anyways, apparently the Jesuits, as I was saying, the leader is the Black Pope. And of course, the current Pope of the Catholic Church is the Jesuit Pope. And he could be the Black Pope. And apparently they're all working in cahoots with the Kabbalist, Zionist, and the organizations that are controlling our world for the global world religion, fulfilling the biblical prophecy, evil folks. So just a little FYI there about what this says here when I understand the word Catholic. And the church has had good leaders and bad leaders. So the Catholic hostility to Masonry, the astonishment evaporated once they realized they were accusing the Masons to worshiping Lucifer. It was at once seen that modern Diabloism, Diablo, the devil, had acquired an intrinsic importance because it was alleged to be connected with the fraternity which the church has long regarded as her implacable enemy. And I did make a video recently, and there was an admittance from a rabbi that Judaism is Masonry, and Masonry is Judaism. And according to the encyclopedia, historically, the religion of the Jewish people has been the Kabbalah. And Kabbalah, you can find Kabbalah mystics and Kabbalah mysticism and Kabbalah witchcraft. So you start to put 2 and 2 together. The secret societies are secret for a reason. They don't want to run down the middle of the street and say we worship the devil. And apparently all it is spiritual communication and controlling demons and spirits and manipulating mankind for their own selfish ends, if you really want to understand it. And a lot of them, as we know, are seriously demented and mentally ill and perverted with all this Pizzagate and child porn, pedophilia, sex trafficking, and all these wars and incidences with so much death. These wealthy people, according to insiders and stuff I've researched and heard people say, they sit back at their meetings like at the Bilderbergers or Bohemian Grove and laugh at the rest of us humans for being so gullible and stupid and naive to be continuing to allow them to do what they do to us. And now everybody's staying home and walking 10, 15 feet from people. I went to the grocery store and everybody had a mask on. I didn't wear a mask. And I was watching an email, I shouldn't say watching an email, watching a video this morning, and I was interrupted by one of the emails. And the email was from the government of Oregon. And it said, don't go out in public. You risk killing someone. Don't kill anybody by going out. This is serious business by evil forces. A warning that the governor, whoever of Oregon, said, if you go out there, you can kill someone. You'll be guilty of murder, exposing yourself. This is crazy. Okay, back to the book. I must be permitted to register clearly. Remember, this author is trying to discredit anybody's belief in black magic, in diaboloism, in Lucifer. I must be permitted, the author says, to register clearly the general conviction that if black magic and sorcery and the Sabbath up to date had been merely revived demon worship, had been merely concerned with the black paternoster, the black mass, and even with the transcendent sensualism, and the ordeal of the apostos, the Roman hierarchy would not have taken it as it has, nor would the witnesses concerning these things have been welcomed with open arms. So the saying, if the Satanism had been merely concerned with the black paternoster, the black mass, or the transcendental sensualism, or the ordeal of the apostos, the Roman hierarchy would not have taken as it has, nor would the witnesses concerning these things have welcomed with open arms. As a fact, no interest whatsoever is manifested in the doings of the diaboloists, the devil worshippers, who operate apart from Masonry. So this saying the Catholic Church wasn't messing with the rest of the other devil worshippers, but only focusing on the Masons. Evil church. Now the hostility of continental Masons towards Catholicism, insofar as it provably exists, and I can show you from these books, I made videos on these, that they are hostile towards the Catholic Church. And the book from the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, as you see here, is called The New Age, and the symbols are all over it. And anyways, on the back of the book, it clearly says, the American public school, non-partisanism, non-sectarianism, efficient, democratic, for all the children of people. So it continues to say here, the entire separation of church and state, opposite of every attempt at appropriate public monies, federal, state, and local, directly or indirectly, for the support of sectarian or private institutions. Separation of church and state is advocated by the Satanists, the Luciferianisms. Isn't that funny? Think about it. The Luciferianism, the Satanists, that one rabbi saying Judaism is Freemasonry, Freemasonry is Judaism, it is the Cabal, it is Lucifer, it is Satanism. And they advocate on the back of their magazine, The New Age. This is too funny. the entire separation of church and state. So what they're saying is they don't want God or Jesus Christ or other religions mixing with the state, but these satanic, Luciferic, demon, Baal, Moloch, Bohemian Grove, Bilderberger Group, evil people, destroying the world, robbing us and doing all kinds of perverted things to people, destroying economies and nations and countries all over the world. The Satanists can be in charge. But you have to wake up if you want to understand this. All right. Now, the hostility of continental Masons towards Catholicism, insofar as it provably exists, has been largely and exclusively created by the hostility of the Church. And we know that he hates most who hates first. I've never heard that before. Insofar, therefore, as the Church has concerned herself by encouragement, which has something of the aspect of incitement, in the recent revelations, we shall have to bear in mind her attitude, while the history of forged decretals and bogus apostolic epistles, I guess documents from the church, will reveal to us that she does not invariably exercise a searching criticism upon documents which serve her purpose. So I told you, this author is a deceiving title when I ordered the book. I thought I was going to get the devil worship in France exposed. And he does sort of do that, but all the authors and famous books that expose all this demonic demonism, secret society, rituals and activities, and even the beings they produce, he tries to discredit them one after another, calling it all fraud. But then we listen to his word in the conclusions, and apparently it's not all fraud. So whenever you read a book, if you just read it verbatim and try to go with be led by the nose by the author, you're making a serious mistake. And the same thing with the things I say. Don't be led by the nose by me. You should be doing what I do and taking notes and looking it up and getting a large diversity of sources for your material and come up with your own conclusions and get your own aha moment and wake up. And maybe that's why you and I and everybody else is on planet Earth. I mean, think about it. If you're going to wind up in heaven in a whole universe and seriously advanced societies, part of the descriptions from the heaven world, I suppose in the heaven world they would want people to be educated and tested to make sure that they could live in a universe society and not be part of the 1/3 of the angels cast out of heaven for the revolutionary activities. Just saying, you can ponder why we're here and what's up, but you can't deny that there's just some sick things going on planet Earth for quite a while. 9/11, World War I, World War II, the British Revolution, French Revolution, early 1800s, lopping off the heads of the kings and many other people. The Russian Revolution, killing up to 100 million Christians and other people, and the Chinese Revolution, where untold millions were killed, Vietnam War, North Korean War, all the other wars, and the destruction of Africa, the enslavement of the people in South America, Central America. Been quite a horrific history. And we are spiritual beings born into these bodies. We live in and we die. And we see what's going on. And some of us want to stand up and speak up and say no. And some people want to stick their hole in their head and hide from it all. And some people want to join it and get all the money and wealth and do the crazy things that they did on Jeffrey Epstein's island with so many of our political leaders and famous people in his playing logs, the books, that he had to be killed in jail because he could have destroyed so many people. But I do believe we must have some decent people in the intelligence services and the FBI and the CIA and the military and hopefully judges and lawyers and congressmen, and somebody would get up, stand up and speak up and expose this stuff and have some people arrested. And we can dream. I'd hate to think that I'm on the top of the pile, along with a lot of other people out there exposing the truth. But, you know, we little guys who don't have all the power, you know, we don't seem to get a lot of attention, and people just dismiss us. And meanwhile, they watch all this strangeness going on, and they ask themselves, what's going on? The sorcery of the 19th century during the 1800s is under no circumstances likely to justify the faggots of the 15th, the 14th century people into magic. It might be easier to justify the sorcery, as much by mystics as by the Catholic Church. Modern black magic may be left to perish of its own corruption. And remember, this author is part of the Psychic Research Society, and those people, as I showed in a document here, were involved with the Balfour Agreement, and Mr. Balfour even became Prime Minister of Britain, and he was the one who made the deal with the Zionist Jews. And remember, the Jews are Kabbalists, and Jesus accused the Kabbalists of the synagogue of Satan. Anyways, they made a deal when Britain was losing the war with the Jewish people of the world, that if they would get their money and power and bring the USA into the war, that they would be promised the Palestinians land in an attempt to bring them the state of Israel. So the fulfillment of the past 300 years has come about by all the insanity and destruction and economic upheaval and theft by these people. And it's all connectable by the dots, as I've shown again and again and again. And I'll keep on bringing more books into it and more evidence as much as it takes, as long as I have the breath and the energy to keep on going forward, and that the powers that be allow me to do it. We know that they took down my YouTube account after almost 10 years, and my Vimeo account after almost a year, 9 months, 10 months. And I'm on BitChute right now, and some of my videos right now, I post them as usual, and they process, and they process, and they process. They haven't shut me down or warned me, but it never gets unprocessed and published. And it's on these particular issues. This is hard impacting material. This is stuff that these evil people do not want out there. This is facts. Written by the very people who become prime ministers, and George Bush Sr. and Jr. and many others coming from the Skull and Bones, and John Kerry and all these people, and the Council of Foreign Relations and Trilateral Commissions and Club of Rome's and Bohemian Grove and Bilderberger groups. And the ones who really are evil get to be billionaires and saying that they're going to use vaccines to reduce the population, and so much more. Back to the book. But an attempt on the part of the church to fasten the charge of diabolism on the Masonic fraternity has credibly another motive than of political hostility, which seems held to justify almost any weapons that comes to hand. At the bottom of her hatred of Masonry, there is also her dread of the mystic. So the Catholic Church has a hatred of Masonry, but behind that is the dread of the mystic. Well, the mystic is the magician. The mystic is the witch. The mystic is Satanism. They worship the devil. So apparently, I guess the Catholic Church at this time in history believed that the Masons, and I've got enough evidence here from their own book. The picture on the front shows you some really ugly stuff. That's the Freemasonic Scottish Rite publication. I didn't make it. No doubt I've been making videos and showing you this stuff. So, who do we to believe? Who are we to believe? This author, who says the Catholic Church dread the activities of the mystic. And it's the mystic and the secret societies controlling the United Nations who, and the military exercises I showed in part 1 of this series, where they were the military, the United States had all those troops all over Europe, and then the military exercises going on in China, the time that the coronavirus came out. Coincidence? And then the people reporting right now massive amounts of equipment being shipped around the United States. Transcendental science claims to have the key to her doctrines, and there is evidence that she fears that claim. So transcendental science claims to have the key to her doctrines, and there is evidence that she fears that claim. Black magic, which by the hypothesis is the use of the most evil forces for the most evil purposes, she does not fear, for it wears its condemnation on its forehead. But mysticism, which accepts her own dogmas and interprets them in a sense which is not her own, which claims a certitude in matters of religion that transcends the certitude of faith, seems to hint that at one point it is possible to undermine her foundations. I just know that when I read some of these books by obvious people into the occult, connected with the spirit world, the evil spirit world, their eloquence and ability to say things that seem manipulative and reel people in and deceive people is quite evident. See, you do have to use something called discernment. Again, I got this book because I thought it'd be pretty clear, cut, dry, that the author was going to show me the evidence of the clear evidence of devil worship in France. And it's by one of the people of the Psychic Research Society, which I did look up that on Wikipedia. I have a 16-page document. Maybe we could look at that for a minute. Quite fascinating. And when I began my research on these videos I've been making, and the reason I've decided to go public and make videos was I originally just wanted to continue my engineering physics career and work in industries that could supply we the people with alternate energy from coal and nuclear power and gasoline. That was my goal. I worked at a major aerospace company for 10 years. I have an electronic technology degree. But when I started researching some of the biographies of historical scientists like Nikolai Tesla, I discovered that most of them were all having psychic experiences and belonging to the secret societies. And even Nikolai Tesla said that he said, I'm not the genius. He said this when he was an elderly man on stage. I'm not the genius you think I am. I hear voices and see images. There are entities from the other world giving me this information. And now we see today with the 5G and the artificial intelligence and all the advanced technologies and nuclear weapons and rockets and missiles and so much more, we get a hint at why the satanic world would, from the underworld, would want to feed this information to humans. And apparently the humans were gullible and selfish and stupid enough to use all these advanced technologies for selfish greed and wealth and all of that, and satisfying their perverted, decadent appetites, human sacrificing and child sex and so much more. These elitists, you give them a little bit of power and they want to live in huge mansions and look down on everybody else. Yep, it leaves a person a little speechless to even have these conversations. But back to the book. And each sentence in this book gives itself away. Hence, she has even ever suspected. So they're talking about the Catholic Church. She has ever suspected the mystic. Well, you think so? So shame on the Catholic Church for suspecting the witches. Has anybody read the Bible? History? And a part of her suspicion of Masonry. You know, when you talk about the Islamic religion, where do you think Muhammad got the information? The Archangel Gabriel. You talk about Christianity and angels. And even before Jesus Christ was on earth, angels going to Lot's house, Babylon, and telling them, get your family and get out of here. This whole place is going to be nuked or something, destroyed. And don't look back, you'll turn to salt. So Lot's wife, as they were leaving Babylon, looked back and turned to salt. So in the Bible, there's plenty of history of communication from angels. And apparently there are fallen angels who were cast into the underworld. And apparently they both have access to this world, God sending angels to help us and answering prayer. And then the Satanists and Luciferians and demonism people doing rituals and meditating and studying to be able to communicate with the beings in the underworld. So it seems. So the church has ever suspected and suspicion of Masonry because of the connections with the mystics. So this author, by trying to discredit all the people who, from beginning of this book, who wrote famous books about people who discovered all of the evil, mystic, demonism, satanic rituals and the actual things that they saw. He doesn't want people to believe any of those authors are telling the truth. But then in this conclusion, the back of the book, the things he is saying exposes what he knows and what he believes. Part of the people and group who were involved with the Balfour Agreement and making a deal with the Britain and all the Kabbalist Jewish people, Zionist Illuminati, to help Britain win the war with Prussia. That's all the Baltics and Germany and Romania and Austria and all that area, the industrial complex. The only crime those people did in that area is they were hardworking people and they were doing a good job. But the money and the wealth and power they were getting, the kingdom of Prussia, Frederick the Great, was a threat to the British kingdom, which was controlled by the Kabbalists, the mystics, the witches. Just facts. And in the 1500s, from Britain to Spain to France, Germany, Italy, everywhere, all of the Kabbalists, they called them Jews, were exiled, banished, and they went up to Scotland and that area and over towards the east, in the Ukraine and Georgia and Russia and Germany to escape the Western Europe. That was in the 1500s. But in the 1600s, through bribery and blackmail and murder, they used espionage and trickery to get and put their own kings in charge so they could take over Britain and France after being exiled. And so that's what went on with the 1500s and 1600s. And they accomplished it in the 1700s early with the revolutions and the beheading of the kings. And they've spent the last 300 years pretty much destroying kingdoms and leaderships and presidents all over the world, all the 5 different continents. That's what's all this stuff in history has been because of these evil bankster manipulators, controllers, and even with Confessions of an Economic Hitman by John Perkins. I made a video on his book. They use these big world banks to convince leaders of nations they would get wealthy by borrowing millions and billions and then bankrupting them. And if they had to, because they couldn't take over, they would bring about a war and start destroying them. Invasions of Grenada, invasions of Panama, invasions everywhere. And boycotting Venezuela, boycotting Iran, and so on behind the scenes. And now, if you've been watching my video, you have a better idea, excuse me, who these people are. But let me get back to the book here. So far be it for the church to be suspicious of the mystics. She had intuitively divined that connection which the Masons themselves, for the most part, is not dreamed of at this day, and when suggested, is generally somewhat lightly cast aside. So you can say that if a insider in the Freemasons were to write this book, and the psychic research societies, they would clearly deny their involvement in being in cahoots with the Kabbalist, globalist, Satanist, demon people. It would be quite out of place at the close of the present inquiry, which from the wholly independent standpoint has sought to justify a great fraternity from a singularly foul aspersion, to attempt enforcement upon Masons a special view of their institutions, but it is desirable at the same time to be just towards the Catholic Church and to affirm that we, so he's talking about himself right now, Mr. Waite, we as mystics can be called a witch, are on this point substantially in agreement with her. The connection in question was for a time visible and remains in historical remembrance from the beginning of its public appearance till the close of the 18th century. The history of Masonry, part of the transcendental history. So the 17th century. The history in Masonry was part of the transcendental history. And I've discovered a lot of this just has communication with underworldly beings, spiritualism. That connection has now ceased to manifest. So they're saying now the connection has ceased to manifest. So apparently in this book, prior to that, I guess it did manifest. But there is another which is integral and permanent and is a matter of common principles and common objects. Let it be remembered, however, that connection is not identity. It is not intended to say that the threshold of Masonry is a gate of mysticism, but that there is a community of purpose and symbolism of history, indirectly of origin, between the two systems. So you're watching this video. What do you think about mysticism? Seriously. What do you think about spiritual communication? Seriously. Communication with beings in the underworld. Where do you think, if you believe that a third of the angels were cast out of heaven, whether it's 1 million or 10 million or 1 billion or 60 billion, and the special place was made for them, the underworld, and then that means in that world there's spiritual beings, and in the heaven world there's spiritual beings, we're spiritual beings, and select people get to be born on earth into these human bodies. And apparently, a lot of us join up with the mysticism, the occult groups, and give us the symbols. 666, and so much more. All true religion, all true morality, all true mysticism have but one object, and that is to act on humanity. Listen to this. Collective and individual in such a manner that it shall correspond efficiently with the great law of development and cooperate consciously therewith to achieve the end of development. I better read that paragraph again. That's quite a statement. So this author, Mr. Waite, famous man, part of the Psychic Research Society group, also involved with the government of Britain and France and other countries in the 1800s and 1700s and 1900s, after causing revolutions in Britain and France and having the kings beheaded, along with a lot of other people who lost their heads. The mystics regained control after being banished and exiled in the 1500s. They're back. But he says here, all true religion, all true morality, all true mysticism have but one object, and that is to act on humanity, collective and individual. So think about this worldwide lockdown right now. And all of us manifest our reality. We perceive reality for what we see. We believe. We have the power to create. So if we're creating what they tell us is real, we're creating it. Act on humanity, collective and individual, in such a manner as it shall correspond efficiently with the great law of development and cooperate consciously therewith to achieve the end of development. So they want to bring about the new world order, the global world order, the return to the golden age, the age of Aquarius. So they had to destroy everything for 300 years. Revolution in Britain and France to get back after being exiled and banished in the 1500s. They had to behead the kings and so many other people. They had to assassinate presidents and leaders all over the world. They had to have world wars and world revolutions in Russia and China to achieve the end of the development by the mystics, the mysticism. Under all the mysteries of its symbolism, behind the impressive parables of its ritual, and as equally, but if possible, more effectively, concealed beneath the commonplace insistences of its moral maxims. This end is also proposed by the occult initiations of Masonry. And just so you can see this for yourself, where my finger is, and everything I just read in this book by an insider of the Psychic Research Society, a famous person, connect with a lot of other famous people in control of the world governments and secret societies. This end is also proposed by the occult initiations of Masonry. Don't believe a darn thing I say. Go get some books and use some discernment. That's all I could say. Watch some videos. That doctor I just mentioned, Dr. Rashid Buttar, R-A-S-H-I-D, doctor, B-U-T-T-A-R, on the coronavirus, and so many others. Dr. Mercola, look up the dangers of coronavirus and on YouTube videos, and listen to some of these people. And see, why do you think they would be trying to get the whole world under control? And it's by these people I'm reading about. They control our world. They're telling us what they need to do. The end of development. They have a goal in mind, a golden age. And the golden age is clearly Platonic, which means there are the return to the kings and queens and the Caesars and the czars and the sultans, and then the people are all the serfs and the slaves. And you know, the ones we don't need, we need to kill them off. We don't want to feed useless food eaters. This is what they think. But can you get the human people on the planet to wake up and say no? And if it be defined more explicitly as the perfection of man, both here and hereafter, so the perfection of man, here and hereafter, and his union with what is highest in the universe. So you want to have a union with the man and what is highest in the universe. And I suppose that would be their demon leader, Lucifer, Satan, Metatron, Baal, Moloch. We shall see more clearly, not only that it is the sole fundamental principle of all religion, its very essence, divested of creed and dogma, but also inherent in the nature of symbolic masonry, and inwrought in the whole system of Masonic ceremonies. See, do you think this author believes what he's saying in his conclusions after he discredits all the people who wrote books on the goings-on of these secret satanic societies, whether in Egypt or over there in Asia or over there in Europe, where these Satanists were doing these rituals in these caves and these dark places and manifesting these monsters and beings, and all these books were written. And so this guy takes it upon himself to look at all those authors who were exposing the goings-on you're not supposed to expose. You know, with the Freemasons, you have to swear allegiance not to share any of the inside secrets under threat of a very horrific death. Just saying. They don't want their secrets out there. All right, page 219. As mystics, I don't get very far in this, throwing in my 2 cents and talking. As mystics, however, we consider that the ethical standard of Masonry will produce good citizens to society and good brethren to the fraternity, but it will not produce saints to Christ. Did you hear that? That's what it says here. By a very famous person. I'm just a guy reading a book. Bottom sentence. As mystics, however, we consider that the ethical standards of Masonry will produce good citizens to society. So I said, suppose that includes George Bush of the Skull and Bones, etc., etc., and all those people photographed at the Bohemian Grove, throwing a baby into the fire, cremation of care, like Kissinger and Reagan and so many people, etc., etc. Bohemian Grove, Rockefellers, Rothschilds. It will produce good citizens to society and good brethren to the fraternity, but it will not produce saints to Christ. So there's a question in that I would ask anybody watching this video. Would you rather belong to their fraternity or be a saint to Christ? Obviously a choice. There is an excellence which is other than the moral. So there is an excellence that is other than the moral. So there's something more excellent than moral. And stands to morality in precisely the same relation that genius bears to talent. So what does that mean? There's an excellence greater than morality. The moral virtues are not the summum bonum, nor the totality of all forces at work in the development of man. It's almost too funny reading this, but I'll go back again. The moral virtues, we all know what morality is. Doing good, not bad. The moral virtues are not the summum bonum, so I guess that means not the most important thing, nor the totality of all forces at work in the development of man, nor actually the perfect way. though they are the gate of the way of perfection. Now the mystic, remember that you can call mystic witchcraft. Now the mystic claims to be in possession of a higher law which transcends the ethical, from which its ethical derives, and to which it must be referred to for its reason. Now at this point I want to clarify something. Throughout history on planet Earth, Peru, Aborigines in Australia, Eskimos, Hopi Indians, Mayans, there have been these tribes of people all over the world. They've had their holy, call it a witch doctor, they call it a shama, whatever, but they're holy men. And they were taught and trained to do these holy things in communication with the spirit world. And they didn't do it, generally speaking, for evil. Like in Peru, you take ayahuasca, the drug. David Icke said he took that, and other people said they took that. Or in Mexico, with Carlos Castienda, in the book reviews I made, took the peyote with a Mexican shaman man. Anyways, they take these drugs, it's a meditation, and you go into the spirit world. You get to see something totally different than the physical world around you. And you get to see these beings in the spirit world, and maybe you're trying to find a cure for a sick little girl or some problem. And the spirit world tells you that this is what you need to do. Go back and get such and such a berry or a bush and process it this way. And you have a cure for that person. So I'm not immensely opposed to some historical senses of spiritualism, including with Jesus Christ healing people, raising Lazarus from the dead, prophesizing the future. But I am opposed to the secret societies, and apparently the spiritual entities they are in cahoots with are from the underworld. They're not the good guys, they're the bad people. In the spirit world, there are good people. Jesus, God, Michael, Gabriel, angels. Just want to say, I'm not anti-spirituality world. But apparently there are some people who want to keep the knowledge to themselves and are using it for very sinister gains and purposes, who are the enemies of God and Jesus and any person with decency and morality and concern and caring in your heart. If that's what you are, you're the enemy. You're the one that they want to kill by decapitation with the Noahide laws and this global world order they want to bring. That's a mouthful, and it's a sad thing to have to say. That the lost secret of Freemasonry is concerned with special applications of this higher law, which connect with the mysticism we, this author, as mystics, do hold and can make evident in its proper time and place. Oh my. All right, just a few more minutes and I'm going to end this video. The other one went over an hour, so I'll try to keep this one at 1 hour. Here and personally, I am concerned only with the comprehensive statement. In addition to its body of moral law, which is founded in the general conscience and in a light form of nature, Masonry has a body of symbolism. That's behind me. That's all the symbols. There's the moon. There's a column. There's the sun over here and another column. There's a serpent behind my head. The serpent eye, the sun's rays. Go watch Jordan Maxwell. Listen to some of his videos. Get his books. I have them. I made videos on it. And many others. Watch my videos. I've been exposing these symbols and these things with these books by well-known people for quite a while. And of course, the badge of honor, having your channel terminated by YouTube and Vimeo, it tells us who's in control of the internet and the powers. I hope BitChute doesn't do it. But you can see if they do it, what I'm talking about. And by the way, I go buy a hard drive, 4 terabytes. It cost me about $100 at the office supply stores. The franchise names I don't want to mention. Just staple that together. Anyways, you can go to the electronics store and get a hard drive, 4 terabytes. They're about $100, plus or minus. And I have over 500, 600 videos in this series of Freemasonry and Satanism. And I can fit them on a 4 terabyte hard drive, which cost me $100. So 6 years worth of videos. You can't watch them all in a year. 600 videos, 1 and 2 hours each. If you in the bottom, if you want the whole set on a 4 TB hard drive, I want $300, and that includes the $100 I paid for. So the total is only $300. So I'm only selling the whole series for $200. I'm just saying, if you want it, and I want people to buy it, because something could happen to me, and where will these videos be? So if people buy it, I would be confident that people would have that information to share with other people. Just saying, you can't watch all the videos in a year. This is, I'll put the most recent one. In this case, it's Series 284, Part 2. So almost 300 book reviews. Some of the books, there's like 12 two-hour videos, like the Blue Lodge Handbook. And Albert Pike's Morals and Dogma, probably 7 or 8 two-hour videos. And so some of them are 3 or 4 two-hour videos. Some are 1, some are 2 or 3. 600, maybe more videos, over 1,000 hours for $300. And if you want to communicate with me, leave a comment below that you want the package, or my email, rickmiracle@yahoo.com. Like it's a miracle on 34th Street. rickmiracle, one word, @yahoo. And I do want to get sets of this out there, as many as possible, just so the information doesn't get suppressed or lost. I talk about everything. Talk about Psychic Research Society, UFOs, aliens, remote viewing by the government's agents leaving their body and all that stuff, and Philadelphia experiment. If you've been watching my videos, or if you go on my website, rickmiracle.com, you can see a list of all of the videos, so you'll get an idea of all of the books and the authors. And I think I need to update that. It's probably missing 20 or 30 videos I've made in the last few months. It's been a little disturbing to have my channel terminated a year ago by YouTube and a few days ago by Vimeo. And then I have to spend weeks and hours and months. It takes me a year just to post them back on a website, working every day. And then Vimeo just shuts it off. So it's a little amusing, but I know I'm doing the best I can do. Masonry has a body of symbolism of which the source is not generally known, and by which it is identified with movements and modes of thought, and with the evolutionary processes, having reference to regions already described as transcending the ethical world, concerned with the spiritual man. Well, I did get some of this book into a video. I suppose it would probably be fruitful to try to do part 3 on this book. But then again, I got to go back to the other book I just finished a video on and do part 3 on that one. This stuff is just too crazy. Kabbalah secrets Christians need to know. An in-depth study of the kosher pagan gods of Jewish mysticism, Deanne Looper. So a lot of these books I got to go do part 3 and part 4. But I just move forward at the pace I can keep up with, and I'm watching videos and living life and doing research. So thank you for watching my video. Rick Miracle reporting.